It's the nightmare of every parent. A teenager goes out at night to meet up with an internet friend who turns out to be a deadly predator in search of excitement and approval. On January 27, 2016, Nicole Lovell, then 13 years old, did exactly that and suffered the consequences of something mostly beyond her control. Today's case focuses on the kidnapping and murder of a young and defenseless inhabitant of Blacksburg, Virginia, a college town that is regrettably accustomed to awful crimes striking out of the blue and shattering the local economy. What at first appeared to be a young child running away in the middle of the night quickly transformed into a frantic hunt and a race against time to bring her back home and to the life-saving medication she required. Nearly 1,000 volunteers dispersed throughout the town, the surrounding Virginia Tech campus, hilly Montgomery County, and other locations. However, Nicole Madison Lovell's brief life ended shortly after she fled her house on Wednesday night at around 1 in the morning. Across the border in a remote area of Surry County, North Carolina, her body would be discovered cruelly disposed of. Who and why might have killed this young girl? What caused her to exit the flat that evening through the bedroom window? Who did she come across? Did she have any plans to meet them? And what transpired to lead to her tragic demise? This is Nicole Lovell's heartbreaking story. Before we continue, we would like to express our sincere condolences to Nicole Lovell's family members, who were the victims of the heinous crimes detailed in this case. It can become cold, and have a long night in the mountains of western Virginia in January. Icy winds are frequent. In the many deeply shaded areas, fallen snow might occasionally stay there for a week or more. Tammy Weeks saw her 13-year-old daughter off to bed on precisely such a night. As a rare extra day off for children, the following morning would be a teacher's workday for the Montgomery County school system, saving Nicole from getting up early to leave for middle school. Her mother had no way of knowing that after the girl's bedroom door was closed, she would move her dresser in front of the door, text a waiting friend, and then be ready to flee. In contrast to a child's typical no-school plan of staying up late and watching TV, Nicole had prepared something quite different. Nicole opened the window to her room at around 1 in the morning. With her backpack and phone in hand, she grabbed a dark blue blanket with a Minions character printed and left for the night. She trudged through the scattered snow on the ground as a car waited for her nearby. The roads had been cleared and plowed. She was running away with her online boyfriend. The adventure was waiting. After that, she experienced a terrible turn of events. Nicole's mother initially learned the young woman was missing and that she had left the Lantern Ridge Apartments on Fairfax Road. All night, the window had been left open, and Tammy Weeks immediately notified the neighborhood police that her daughter was missing. Nicole got a liver transplant when she was just 10 months old, which would impact every day of her life. To stay healthy, she needed anti-rejection medications twice a day. The issues she might encounter could become fatal if she missed more than 1 or 2 doses.
I've been without her medications for 3 days, and I know that we're in a situation where if she doesn't get her medication and get it fast, that, my daughter's going to die.
Police, fire, and rescue officials from all over the region rapidly moved through the neighborhood to start their search as local television and radio stations issued alarms about the missing girl. Many locals familiar with the region's numerous woodlands and mountainous terrain participated in the effort. Drones were utilized to search the region from the air, and nearby Virginia Tech students also got involved. The Corps of Cadets at Virginia Tech has also joined the quest. In recent years, Blacksburg and Virginia Tech communities have grown extraordinarily close-knit and encouraging. Si-Young Hui Cho went on a killing spree on that campus on April 16, 2007, leaving 17 injured and 32 dead. Blacksburg and the campus community were devastated by what was, at the time, the deadliest mass massacre in American history, but they managed to survive by leaning on one another. They collaborated frantically to find this young child on this particular day. The third day would bring about the discovery of her naked body down an embankment in a wooded region. The body was discovered in Surry County, North Carolina, a nearby county across the state boundary. It may have appeared remote to those not familiar with the area because it was just off North Carolina Route 89, but it was not very far from a fairly frequented route. Nicole provided detectives with a crucial puzzle piece as the area was being examined. The teenager had written the identities and passwords for her online social media accounts, including Kik and Omegle, on a wall in her bedroom. The website, which is well liked among teenagers, allows users to communicate and occasionally even interact with others anonymously. Because of their anonymity and lack of monitoring, these websites have developed a reputation as a haven for predators and groomers. Nicole's mother, Tammy, claimed to have discovered Kik on Nicole's phone before she vanished and forced her to erase it. It was clear that Nicole had returned to those apps and used them frequently. These login credentials proved to be the key that started this horrible situation. To create a profile of her behavior, experts were able to access her accounts and go back through her texts, images, and other communications. She had a covert relationship with an older man who attended Virginia Tech nearby, apart from her schoolmates and family. Nicole's online identity reflected the anguish experienced by many middle schoolers transitioning into adolescence. She didn't feel appreciated or understood. She was attention-seeking. She desired to be perceived as an adult by someone. She wanted someone to embrace her for who she was because she had always thought the scars from her early surgery were unsightly. She either discovered someone looking for someone with a specific vulnerability or found someone ready to look past that. She located a threat. He identified himself as Dr. Tombstone online. Working with the business that owned and ran the service, an FBI cyber unit got the data trail from Nicole's communications on the Kik app. It became clear that Dr. Tombstone was the only person the young girl had spoken to in the days preceding her abduction. Cyber investigators determined that the username belonged to David A. and was connected to a Gmail account. This story closely connected David Eisenhower, a young man. David Eisenhower, a freshman at Virginia Tech, was 18 years old. David had been a star athlete back home at Wild Lake High School just outside of Baltimore, Maryland, and had been attracted to the college by its excellent engineering curriculum. He also raced on the track. During his senior year, he had even been highlighted as the week's athlete in a news segment on the local television station. He achieved 3 victories in the distance events at the Maryland State Championships while still in high school.
I will personally not stop until I reach my peak performance.
From an outward perspective, he appeared to be like every other first-year student enrolling in the sizable institution that year. He made some friends at school, in the classroom, and on the track team. Although David had fought to carve out a position for himself, the majority were merely acquaintances. He enjoyed making up bizarre tales to give the impression that he was more wise and experienced than he was. Stories that frequently featured improbable events or were blatant attempts at self-promotion. According to his friends, his drinking adventures never made sense and frequently concluded with him claiming to have passed out and not recalling what happened next. He soon started having credibility issues, sometimes attributed to his simply trying too hard to impress others. On campus, he did make one close friend, though. At Virginia Tech, Natalie Keepers was a student who was majoring in engineering. She had also traveled to the mountains of Western Virginia from Eastern Maryland. After moving to campus, the 20-year-old woman, who was serious and bookish, briefly dated Eisenhower. However, their connection swiftly changed into a profound friendship. That is, at least, how their tales ended. David had found a new acquaintance in Blacksburg somewhere in the autumn, but this time it was online. He started a conversation with Nicole Lovell on Omegle. He would contend that he believed she was 16 or 17 years old. She was just 13 years old, though, and it didn't seem like she could have done much to influence his decision as they spoke and texted back and forth. When the two finally met in December 2015, Nicole could no longer hide her age. Perhaps Eisenhower was taken aback. Perhaps he had figured it out already and decided he didn't care. The first time they met, there was no admission of any sexual interaction, but something in their connection shifted due to urges that would send them on a terrible collision course. After that, Eisenhower started behaving in a way that suggested he believed he had crossed a personal line and couldn't return. He was terrified of the consequences of his conduct. Later during the trial, Montgomery County Commonwealth Attorney Mary Pettit informed the jury that Eisenhower was having a problem and that Nicole Lovell was the source of that difficulty. He concluded that there was a significant issue with his relationship with this minor. Eisenhower resorted to Natalie Keepers, his only close friend at the school, and she offered to assist him in solving the issue, no matter how far they might have to travel. Natalie finally had something she could get her teeth into, but David still had a significant issue to solve. Perhaps this was a connecting experience for the two of them in her mind because she still loved David. Perhaps they were allowed to indulge in their darkest and most secret sides. Or did a borderline psychopath and a secret sociopath meet each other when they had a chance to explore their darker tendencies? Was it just a desperate man and a friend working together to solve a problem? Eventually, that crucial distinction would be a contention between the prosecution and defense counsel. Eisenhower's defense at the trial centered on questions about her willingness, her excitement for fixing this issue, and her activities on the day of the homicide. A candlelight vigil was arranged for Nicole Lovell and her family 3 days after the disappearance while searches were still ongoing in the area. Hundreds of residents gathered at the Lantern Ridge apartments to pray for her safe return, sing hymns, and support one another and her family. Police officers uncovered the terrible discovery that everyone had feared a few counties away to the south, just beyond the North Carolina state line. A little girl's naked body was discovered down a road in Surry County's Woodland region. Her next of kin later confirmed the original identification, which was made with assistance from Blacksburg police officers. The absolute worst had happened, Nicole had been discovered. Back in Blacksburg, the hunt for their recently identified suspects intensified while the body was brought in, and the area was guarded and investigated by forensic investigators from both states and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. David Eisenhower was interrogated by Blacksburg Police, Virginia Tech Police, and an FBI agent, using Nicole's online data as proof. Nicole Weeks was also included. Both were initially cooperative with authorities, and as they acquired additional evidence, official arrests were delayed.
This investigation is far from over as we continue to conduct multiple interviews and processing additional evidence related to this crime. The focus of this investigation is to now reconstruct the timeline leading up to Nicole's tragic death.
A very preliminary determination of the cause of death is stabbing.
Officials had called the couple in for interrogation after receiving information online. The arrest was made after Nicole's killed and dismembered body was found, and further physical evidence started to mount. As they got to talking, each of them described what had happened in detail. The events leading up to that evening and the next day were chronicled on their cell phones, which also served as a travel map. Investigators learned from Keepers that David had confided in them about the relationship and his struggles. She stated that he claimed to have met her at a party and expressed concern that they had slept together, but he could not recall the details since he had passed out and woken up the following morning in a ditch. As a result of what he stated, the listener would recall David's alleged propensity for making up ludicrous stories about his drinking that invariably resulted in him passing out or going black. For those who heard them, the stories never quite rang genuine. Did the incident take place this way, or was he using a stock explanation that he wasn't aware of being truly credible? Nobody knows, but he and Keepers went on despite their concern that he might have caused the young girl to become pregnant. According to Keepers, Eisenhower admitted to her that he had tried to cool things off with Nicole and wanted to stop speaking to her because he was worried about being arrested for their relationship if it were discovered. He would later divulge to Keepers that Nicole had threatened suicide if he ended their relationship. Eisenhower and keepers concluded that a long-term fix was required under the threat of a potential pregnancy being discovered. They believed that Nicole's demise was the only solution. The two started formulating their plan, occasionally via text. Both would emphasize their reluctance while basing their defenses in court on the other's passion for the crime. Cell phone GPS evidence from the day before the kidnapping revealed that Eisenhower and keepers were formulating plans and obtaining the essential supplies. The two went to a nearby Walmart and bought a big garden shovel the day before Nicole vanished. Following their purchase, security cameras caught the two leaving with the shovel. This shovel matched the description of one discovered with Nicole's blood on it. GPS tracking technology revealed the two were at a barbecue fast food joint in Blacksburg when Nicole vanished. After eating together and making the necessary arrangements, the two carried out their plan. Keepers did not dispute that she was part of the preparation and what happened afterward, but she claimed she was not present at the subsequent phase. Nicole collaborates with Eisenhower while she waits for him to show up. Her dresser blocks the bedroom entrance. He pulls up in front. The dark blue Minions blanket, Nicole's coat, backpack, phone, and other items are all taken. She unlocks the window, exits, and hops inside his vehicle before they start their getaway. According to GPS tracking, the automobile is seen arriving at a spot on Craig Creek Road close to the Virginia Tech campus. Craig Creek Road is a one-lane road that winds through some trees. Due to the widely spaced rural homes and trailers along the road, there may not always be a clear line of sight between neighbors' homes. Snow covered the ground, and a waning moon shone through partly cloudy skies on this chilly Wednesday night. The two were driving along what turned out to be a lonely, dark road without any street lights as the temperature was rapidly dropping. Eisenhower then came to a stop. 1:02 in the morning. The two left Eisenhower's course of action outlined in the autopsy report that was provided to the court, but it is impossible to know what Nicole was thinking at that precise moment. A shovel slammed into Nicole's neck, breaking one of her vertebrae. She hit the ground, still alive, and Eisenhower started stabbing her. She was stabbed 14 times, including 7 times in the head, 7 times in the face, and 7 times in the chest. The blow that sliced her throat caused the fatal wound. Nicole Madison Lovell, a little girl who had undergone a liver transplant and was cherished by her extended family and many friends, was murdered in cold blood on a lonely road in January. The dead woman's body was subsequently taken by Eisenhower and placed in the trunk of his vehicle. Along with a shovel and a knife, her other belongings and her Minion's security blanket were also thrown in. He returned to his vehicle and drove home. He would walk inside and spend the night there, perhaps tormented by what he had done, while Nicole's body would remain outside in the mid-20s before dawn. Nobody passing by that route that night would notice anything unusual. Until the early hours of the morning, the murder goes unreported. Unaware of the horror that had passed them, they slept, preparing for the upcoming workday. Eisenhower would send keepers texts to initiate their next horrible plan stage. The two would get into his car the following day and drive to a remote location across the North Carolina border. According to texts found on his phone, Eisenhower asked an anonymous man in Pulaski, Virginia, if he knew of a spot to dispose of a body. The police found that the victim believed Eisenhower was joking and was unaware he was serious. The two discovered a potential location while driving down North Carolina Route 89, which was somewhat close to a property owned by Eisenhower's extended family members. Nicole's body was dismembered, cleaned to conceal any traces of the crime, and then discarded down a slope covered with trees. They believed that the cold weather would keep the scent at bay and that nature would entirely dispose of the body in the area within a few weeks, according to texts between the two. Eisenhower's online searches before the murder revealed that he was looking for information on how long it takes to burn a body. What is used on a body as an ID? His inability to come up with the correct response undoubtedly contributed to his demise. The body of Nicole was discovered unharmed. The evidence accumulating up to that point had primarily been electronic. Eisenhower quickly stopped speaking in the police station, but keepers persisted. Beyond the words and the technology, there was no tangible proof of a murder, and forensic investigators were gathering evidence to identify the murderer. Evidence was gathered at the death scene, and skin rolls were discovered under Nicole's fingernails. The scraps of flesh, completely missing in the attempts to clean up the body, would show through DNA that she had scratched Eisenhower before being killed. Additional law enforcement personnel and forensic teams searched the trash and bins at Virginia Tech. A dive team investigated the campus pond. Then, a bottle of Clorox and numerous wipes covered in brown stains were discovered in a dumpster. Later, blood traces were discovered in Eisenhower's car's trunk. A bag among the keeper's belongings may have been the most incriminating evidence. Bloody attire and the incredibly recognizable dark blue Minions blanket had been kept and stashed away. Maybe it was proof that would be discarded later. Maybe it was some gruesome trophy. Another apparent oversight in the two's post-murder cleanup attempts was the discovery of blood on the toes of the keeper's boots. Eisenhower and keepers were legally detained and accused of participating in Nicole Lovell's kidnapping, murder, and body disposal. Both pleaded not guilty to the allegations against them, but their defenses focused more on identifying the perpetrator than denying involvement. In his defense, Eisenhower suggested that Keepers was responsible for the murder and had tricked him into carrying it out. They attempted to invalidate her testimony by arguing that a large portion of it was supplied to the police before she was informed of her Miranda rights. She was sometimes depicted as a sociopath acting out a part enthralled by the pleasure of murder and the meticulous planning that went into it. Attorneys for the Keepers claimed that she was not involved in Nicole Lovell's real murder. Although it was virtually impossible to claim that she didn't have input before the incident, an active role in the disposal of the body, and knowledge of how to hide evidence, the evidence could not position her at that point in the murder.
I am sorry for the pain that my actions have caused Nicole Lovell and her family. Nothing can ever undo what has been done, and for that, I am deeply, sincerely, and forever sorry.
David Eisenhower ultimately received terms of 10 years for kidnapping Nicole, 60 years for first-degree murder, and 5 years for hiding Nicole's body after being found guilty. In addition to adding 20 years of probation to the sentence, 15 years of the original term would be suspended. In addition, $5,130 in reparations was mandated for him. Natalie Keepers would also be found guilty of first-degree murder accessory charges. For the accessory charge and an additional 5 years for hiding the body, she received a 40-year prison term. She received a sentence double the suggested minimum for the accessory to murder charge and had 5 years of the sentence suspended. The pair will undoubtedly spend the majority of their lives in prison, but Nicole Lovell will never return as a result. Like many teenagers, she sought acceptance and grew up, but because of them, she would never have the chance to make her place in the world or discover pride and satisfaction in herself. Her family was left broken and with wounds that will never fully heal. Any parent who has suffered with their child during those difficult years of adolescence would feel a cold chill in their heart after hearing about the heinous conduct on that chilly January night in the mountain town of Blacksburg, Virginia. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Additionally, press the notification button to be kept informed whenever we reveal a brand new, disturbing case. Stay cautious and keep an eye out until next time. You never know what might be hiding in plain sight.